Hello, Jane. Welcome to what do I say here? Welcome to the Yukon and North 61. You know, it's important to read, and for winter travel, I'm thinking of doing something a little different. I realize I'm getting all my exercise in the summer, and other than forcing myself to exercise, I don't get much natural exercise in the winter because I skidoo all the time. So I'm thinking of doing some trips and go back to my heart of winter camping. When I was in Nunavut, we used skidoos a lot, and then when I moved to Hay River, I discovered snowshoeing. Every Christmas time I'd go on a big long trip. And this book here, which I have the first edition, this is the second edition. The first edition I've got tightly squired away because they're almost impossible to get. And even the second edition is now hard to get. It's by the Canovers. And the Canovers led all of these fantastic trips into places like Labrador, and they rediscovered some of the old ways of camping, like Calvin Rustrom talks about, but this is a fantastic how-do book. If you wanted to get a book that tells you how to live in the wintertime in the boreal forest, this is incredible. This is exactly how a book should be written. I thought about writing a winter camping book, and then I read this and I thought, it's been done. Cannot be improved. This is so good as a book. The other books that kind of go with it that I found that are just a little bit original and tell you a little bit is this book Winterwise by a guy called Monty Elford, who's a Yukoner. He's got some really good chapters about travel on the ice and overflow. And also this book, Getting Back, which I think was only printed maybe once by a guy called John Milne. And it's the only really decent book there is on skidooing in the north. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skidoo in with my winter trekker tent, which is a very light canvas tent, weighs about 20 pounds total, bring a wood stove, and that'll be my base camp. And then when I'm getting into places where I think there's bison, I'm on a snowshoe and I'm going to do little day trips, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And so I've got to go in there with a wood stove. That's about, altogether, that's about 40 pounds of gear, plus your sleeping bag and all that stuff. So it's heavy, but I'll skidoo that in. I'm being needlessly confusing. So I'm going to skidoo in, set up a hot camp. So I got a base. And then from that base, I'm going to do short trips. Some of them might be overnight, and they'll be cold tented because I want to go really light. That's all I'm trying to say. But I keep getting sidetracked, as you'll see just now. And the great thing about that snow trekker is if it got down to minus 45, minus 50, I can erect it over my snowmobile, put the wood heat on, and heat up my snowmobile and then go, especially now that I've got the 2 batteries. And so I've created a little grub box. The north is replete with grub boxes, and this will be the grub box for my snowshoe trips. And I'll either take it on a pulk, or I've got a really nice roll-up toboggan, depending on how much stuff I'm going to carry, and I'm going to snowshoe in. And this is my grub box. So I'm going back to the kind of Nunavut grub box because I'm going to cold camp, because I'm going to go in really light. And I'll make sure the days are a little better. I'm going to use this tent. This is my Hilleberg Janu. Can't find a better winter tent than this. It's a 2-man tent, so it'll be perfect for me. And then, here's my grub box. And I'm going to show you a few things of what I'm going to do. I always like these cups. These cups are both bowls and cups. Because I'm going to be drinking coffee, because I've now got into coffee, I got to take 2 pots. This little pot for coffee. It's got some spoons in it, and this big pot for everything else. And this is the Kohansky pot. And Kohansky was one of my mentors. The great thing about this pot is it's got that beautiful bail. It's got this handle, so you can also use this really nicely over a fire, and they nest nicely together. But this will be just for coffee. And then for my stove, I'm finally going off of. This is going to be a white gas stove. It'll also burn all sorts of other stuff, but I'm going to be taking white gas because it's the cleanest thing. And one of the things you do, and this was first taught to me by the Landrys, when the Landrys did a trip all the way around Baffin Island, and they did that trip by a dog team. And they have little grow boxes, they made them out of plywood. they always set up their stove on a base and didn't take it apart all the time. When you're taking something apart all the time, like even one of these very reliable MSR stoves, this is the XGK, I think they call it, is a brilliant stove. You got to preheat it, it burns a bit of fuel, but man, it's powerful. It'll melt a lot of snow, because sometimes what you do is you're burning snow, so that pot is only just barely big enough. The other thing I'm going to bring is I have an ice chisel. I won't show you that, but you can break through the ice and actually get water right from the lake, which saves you a lot of energy. But having this on a stand and then never having to take it apart, I probably got 2 days of fuel here. But if I just put this big guy on, I've probably got 4 days of fuel. And you need your stove. And by not taking it apart, you're not messing with this clip. And this is the most unreliable part of these stoves, is having to take them apart. And these pumps have a lot of plastic in them. They seem to work really well in cold weather, but you're better not to mess with them. So I put it on a little base. I call this my boomerang base. And it just barely fits in here. But it's got enough space that you're not putting any pressure on that little linkage there. And you can just put it right in there and you leave it set up all the time. You make sure you don't surround it with heavy stuff. And then I can put my, all my other stuff in here will fit in here too, like my thermos bottle. Thermos bottle is an important piece of gear for cold weather. Multiple headlamps, multiple ways of making fire. So all my stuff will go in here, and then I'll have a little bit of food on the top just in case I get a little leakage of gasoline. I want to make sure my food's on the top layer, and I might even have a little really light plywood thing that goes down and covers this and protects it. And the other thing I'm bringing, all lightweight stuff. This little pulley system, I forget even what pulley system this is, and I don't mark it anywhere. Oh yeah, Nifty Lift. This thing has got this Spectra amazingly strong rope. It'll get 700 pounds up in the air, but it'll drag like 1,000 pounds. And it's got I think it's a 4-to-1 or 6-to-1 ratio, so you can really get a lot of leverage on this thing. And it's way better than bringing a come along when you're having a man haul. And I'll go down to a lightweight rifle. So now that I have to carry my rifle again. So here's one that I'm working on. This is a Husqvarna 1900. These 1900s are a bit like a precursor of a Tika. They're push feed action, but they're super smooth. In fact, I think that's a better action than the Tika. They've got a great trigger. It's fantastic. So I'm reinstalling a front sight. I'm going to put a banded front sight on this. And it's actually going to have a night sight. It's a Holland & Holland sight. So I'm really going to get that rifle going. And that's a 6 3/4 pound 9.3 by 62. And I replaced the scope. I had a heavy scope on it. I just put this little burst 2-7 on it for now. And because it's fairly light. And yeah, so I'm going to get back to my roots and give this a try and try to even up my fitness curve rather than, have sheep hunting as the pinnacle and then the rest of the year is all machine work and then just what exercise I do. I'm going to try to get into this. And dragging a pulk or a toboggan is a lot of hard work, and I'm going to try to keep my load light. That's why I'm going to go back to cold camping. And the other thing I'm going to do, I'm going to wrap my face really good in, I've got a gigantic wool scarf. Because the one thing I notice is my sinuses go now when I'm in cold weather. So I'm going to try to mitigate that without putting heat in the system. So I'm excited about this. It's probably not going to happen till well after January, but I'm going to give that a go. And the only thing that's going to knock me off is if I get a Bison early, which we're getting very, very close to Bison right now. And if I do, I'll just take a 22 and look for ptarmigan. Or just go and have fun out in maybe ice fishing. I don't like ice fishing, but I guess if I have to, I'll do it. So thanks for watching North 61.